All right, welcome into Sports Bit Betting Insight today, Monday, May 23rd. Paulie and Teddy looking forward to big game breakdown. Game 4, Cavs and the Raptors. We got the Nationals and the Mets and the Cubs and the Cardinals. Deep dive's going to be key players and how they affect the team's performance. Plus, the play of the day, we start with bad bets. Mercy. The Warriors get carried out. It's 40-40 with 8 minutes left in the second quarter. Next thing you know, a huge OKC run. They led it to half 72-47. Might have been the worst game of Draymond Green's career. Curry minus 39. Thompson minus 41. OKC leads the series 2-1.
Yeah, I mean, and there was a lot of money on OKC at the sharpest shops. The money poured in on the Thunder before tip-off. The plus threes on OKC bet down to +2. Although at the recreational books, it was still +3 on OKC by tip-offs. It was all sharp money that came in right at the end there. But the reality was, I mean, this was one monster run. It never ended. I mean, you talked about that 40-40 tie. It was a 32-7 run before halftime.
Mm-hmm.
And then by the end of the third quarter, the Thunder had 117 points.
Yes.
So we're talking about a squad that scored 77 points in, about a little over a quarter and a half? That's some good shooting. And it's bad defense, good shooting. That's the big question for me, Paulie, out of this. I watched the game. I had money on OKC. I was very happy with the result.
Uh-huh.
But at the end of it, I was like, was it Thunder good or was it Warriors bad? I mean, obviously it was a little bit of both. Which one do you think was more, Paul? Exactly.
Okay. OKC great.
Yeah.
Because it was come down, take a contested shot, try to get the offensive rebound, lay up the other way. Another miss, OKC 3, OKC dunk. And so, I mean, when do you see Golden State miss that many shots and give up easy points in transition? Then they checked out in the second quarter. Now, early line on Game 4 is Golden State -1.5. Interesting because you got looks easy. Well, you got a 73-win team who's yet to lose back-to-back games. But who knows? Maybe Green suspended too with the groin kick.
Yeah, and that's the big question. I mean, there was a question mark. Would Green be suspended? Penny hung a number, said that no, -200. But the market certainly took that into account off the opener with the -1 for Golden State. Frankly, I thought the number would be Warriors 3. And, of course, the early money has come in on Golden State, betting up to 1.5 at the leading indicator shops. I wouldn't be surprised at all if we see more early Warriors money. If you like Golden State for game number 4, I bet them sooner rather than later.
Yeah. In-game wagering at one point, in-game running, Golden State getting 36.5, and the total was 250. Oh, man. To bad bets. How about Kershaw here and the Dodgers? So they play the marathon that gets over at 7:30 Pacific time and goes 17 innings. They tell Kershaw, hey, well, you'll be fine. We play Monday night at home against the Reds. So they don't send him home. He stays with the team. The guy even had to come up and pinch hit.
Yeah, that's the craziness of it, is that the guy was forced to pinch it. They needed him on the bench. They used his bat on the bench. But, I mean, I don't know if everyone knows what normally happens with starting pitchers. The starting pitchers that throw in the first game of a series, they usually fly ahead of the team. They're there the night before and ready. But this is one of those rare instances when, nope, let's just leave Dave Roberts. Kershaw, just hang out with us today. You wonder if it's going to be a difference maker against the Reds. Obviously, Kershaw's so good that none of this might matter. But when you have a guy sitting on the bench for 6 hours the night before he's supposed to pitch, that's not usually a good sign.
Yeah,
right. Of course, when you talk about bad beats and bad bets, how's this for a bad bet? You got the Padres +1.5 on the run line.
Sure.
Oh, you lose that in the 17th inning, man. That's frustrating.
That's a tough one. I hear you. Well, how about the Astros? Don't they watch SportsBet? We've been telling you how bad Keuchel's been.
We sure have. We told y'all that he was a bet against Hurler all the way. He's now allowed 5 or more earned runs 5 times in his last 7 starts. The Astros are 1-6 in those games. Last year was last year. The guy was a Cy Young hurler. This year is this year. Money poured in on Houston on Sunday. -130 up as high as -155. What's up, syndicates? You got to be watching Sportsbet. Dallas Keuchel, not a guy who you want your money on right now in Texas. Lit him up again on Sunday.
Vicious beat. How did that Reds game stay under?
Well, I guess Cincinnati has to cash an under every once in a while. But, a 9, bet up to 9.5. They're at 9 in the top of the 5th. All right, with one of the worst bullpens I've ever seen in play the rest of the way. Seager gets thrown out at home with the bases loaded and 1 out, and then the Reds bullpen comes in and throws 4 scoreless innings. The Mariners pen comes in and throws 3 scoreless innings. Game stays under by the hook. That's an ouch. When you get to 9 in a Reds game and you're in the 5th inning, boy, I didn't go back and look, but I would expect every single one of them has gone over the total prior to this one. But speaking of streaks that ended, what about the Penguins, Paulie? Weren't they 46-0 after leading after 2 periods?
You got it, and they blew it in the 3rd period, and they lost in overtime. Tampa scored right away. They now lead that series 3-2. Odd move to switch goalies. I thought Murray, he's got him to this point. Why would you change goalies? And Fleury looked shaky. Great win by Tampa, and they blow it there. We touched on this Friday on Sportsbet. The win totals came out at the Golden Nugget, and what jumped out to us? Ohio State 8.5 and Tennessee at 10. We thought Tennessee was too high. We thought Ohio State was too low. Well, guess what the pros came in and did?
You know what they did, bud. And it's so funny because, again, we hadn't done a ton of work on college football. I haven't done a ton of work. I know you haven't done a ton of work. I'm sure that many of the guys who were betting the openers at the Golden Nugget haven't done a ton of work on college football. What are they betting? They're betting numbers. And they're looking at Tennessee saying it's going to take 11 wins to beat us. Of course the money came on the under, and a lot of money came on the under. Tennessee, 10 wins. And, of course, let's flash that schedule up there for a minute and take a look. Obviously, the Vols with Josh Dobbs coming back. But in terms of losable games, because that's what you look at when it comes to season wins, losable games. Virginia Tech with Fuente, maybe. It's a neutral site game. Florida, that's losable.
Sure.
At Georgia, that's losable. At A&M, that's losable. Alabama at home, that's losable. The back part of the campaign is pretty easy. At South Carolina, Muschamp will be having his systems in place by then. That's losable. You don't normally see a team with 5 quote-unquote losable games aligned as a 10-win team where it takes 11 wins to cash that over ticket. I'm not surprised at all to see Tennessee taking a whole lot of under money off that initial Golden Nugget opener.
How about the Buckeyes?
Well, it's the same story with Ohio State. Look, this is a team that, you look at Ohio State's schedule, I see 4 losables. Let's flash that up there on the screen. The game at Oklahoma is a losable. The game at Wisconsin is a losable. And then the final 2 at Michigan State and then Michigan in the season finale. The Wolverines certainly going to remember what Ohio State did to them in Ann Arbor last year. So that would be 4 quote-unquote losable games for Ohio State, but I would expect them to be favored in at least 3 of those contests, maybe all 4. So I'm not surprised at all to see Ohio State. They were lined 8.5, a full win lower than Michigan. Yeah, and this is something that you never see with win totals. The 8.5's gone now. Bye-bye. It's 9 now. So the Nugget did it early and smartly, knowing that they had a chance to get, in a real bad position. Because you get, at 8.5 goes to 9, it lands 9. You pay all your 8.5s over. You don't get any money back on the 9s under, etc., etc. They moved it real early. I think it was smart for them to move it. And the over money still came in at over 9 for Ohio State. So those 2 initial, and again, Paulie, it was you and I looking at this going, this one doesn't look right. That one doesn't look right. The markets saw what we saw and reacted accordingly.
Small moves: Clemson over 10, Houston over 9, Ole Miss over 7.5, and Auburn over 7. Nobody bet those conference props?
Yeah, they're cool props. You have to give Tony Miller and Aaron Kessler and company credit for putting them up.
Yeah.
All the Pac-12 wins combined, all the SEC and ACC and Big 12 and Big 10. They even have a grand salami for the 5 major conferences and total wins for all 5 of them. No action so far. And frankly, I'm not surprised there hasn't been a lot of action so far. It's still really, really early in the process, but they were all lined at minus 110 at the opener. They're all still lined at minus 110 now. The numbers on those aggregate win totals have not moved one iota. So there's opportunities out there for bettors ready to do some homework right about now.
Rapid fire up next. Big game breakdown. We start in the NBA. It's coming up on SportsBit. Betting insight today on SBRpicks.com.
Find the best tennis odds for each Grand Slam event. Research before you bet on sportsbookreview.com.
Time for big game breakdown. Remember live odds, sportsbookreview.com. Game 4, Cavs 6, 197 on the road in Toronto. And both Kyrie and Love needed a hug after Game 3. They were horrendous. I don't know who was worse. You look at this graphic. Minutes, 29 for Love, 37 for Kyrie. 1 of 9, 3 of 19. Love had 3 points, Kyrie 13. They did nothing on the boards, nothing with assists. Love was -6. Kyrie was -14. And, I don't know what Lou decides to do in Game 4, but I know LeBron had a couple thoughts about, hey, I need the ball more and some more looks.
Yeah, and the answer to who was worse was Kyrie Irving was worse. Say what you want about Love. Love is a complimentary player on that team. Kyrie Irving isn't. It's Irving and James who have the ball in their hands all the time. And, of course, the numbers state that out. Irving was -14 during his 37 minutes. And, of course, Love sat on the bench for the entire fourth quarter. I'm not sure if that's the smartest thing that Tyronn Lue's ever done. They need to try to win the game, but they also want to keep this guy's confidence of if Kevin Love goes south, Cleveland is not winning the title. But you talk about the quotes. Let me go here. Let's start with LeBron. Mm-hmm. The ball has kind of been taken out of my hands a little bit. I'm okay with that. Not that there's anything wrong with that in Jerry Seinfeld fashion. But there is a point in time where you say, okay, some of the guys are not going. Let me see if I can get it going. Saturday night just didn't happen that way. We'll have a better game plan going into Game 4. Tyronn Lue. I think we should have called more plays to make him, LeBron, more dominant. I think we continue to run plays that have been effective and working throughout the course of the series, knowing that Kyrie and Kevin could get going at any time. I should have put the ball in LeBron's hands a little bit more to let him create and let him draw double teams. Lue has talked so much about accountability. I like that he said this. So that one was more on me.
Yeah, I think that's ridiculous. You have to be a leader. There's no reason to tell the media that. Say it behind closed doors. He has an interesting way of, stuff on Twitter, putting up early in the season, tweeting out, working out with Dwayne Wade. So it's a strange way to kind of motivate the other guys. I don't know why he would say that. But it wasn't all bad, Cleveland. It was what Toronto did as well. Lowry and DeRozan got going. They combined for 52 points on 19 of 37 shooting. And how about Biyombo? He was huge. 26 boards, 4 block shots. And you look at this graphic, team rebounds, games 1 and 2, 91-61 in favor of the Cavs. Game 3, Toronto won by 14 on the boards, Teddy.
Oh, yeah. That was Bismack Biyombo's the game of his career.
Yeah.
By a wide margin. The question is, can he do it again? But I want to go back to those quotes because you have to wonder, is this how championship teams talk? LeBron basically was saying the game plan was wrong for getting the ball to Irving and Love.
Yeah.
And Lue was basically agreeing. What does that do for the confidence of guys that just had a disaster? The rest of the team, except for LeBron James, just 19 of 62 from the floor in that contest. Meanwhile, on the other side, Lowry and DeRozan, 52 points on 19 of 37 shooting. If those two are decent or better, Toronto's live to win any game. They're live to cover any point spread. If those two are awful, or at least one of the two is awful, like they've been in the majority of games in the postseason, not so much for Toronto. But you know where the action's going to come in this game, Paulie.
Oh, yeah.
No question. Everyone in the world is going to be betting on Cleveland.
Yep.
Your recreational bettors are going to be on Cleveland. Your wise guys, you don't know what they're going to do. The recreational play will be on the Cavs. If you like Cleveland and you play at a recreational shop, do yourself a favor. Get down sooner, not later.
Yep. Lowry DeRozan played well. Biyombo, game of his life. Love and Kyrie stunk. Still a 4-point game in the third quarter. That's what they'll think for Game 4. Mets and Nationals. Nationals $1.55, 7.5. Cologne against Gonzalez. They played last week. Nationals now in first place. They took 2 out of 3 on the road against the Mets. And the Cologne-Gonzalez head-to-head matchup in that series, Nationals won 7-1. A reason why Cologne's looking at the ball funny, maybe it's a division opponent who has his number, or maybe the off-the-field distractions can be a problem with him.
Yeah, I think it's probably more when it comes down to a divisional opponent than the off-the-field stuff. Look, Washington's seen Cologne a lot the last couple of years. His start against the Nats, 4.2 innings, he gives up 5 walks. In his other 7 starts, 42 innings, giving up 4 walks. Cologne is a guy who throws strikes. And when he's facing a team that can hit his wide assortment of fastballs, He tends to try to nip around the corners a little bit. That happened against the Nats last time. It wasn't pretty. Of course, the last time he faced Washington, he allowed 10 of the 24 batters he faced to reach base. Only 3 of those 10 scored. And you wonder if a quick second look makes it even tougher for him to fool this lineup. But for as consistent as Bartolo Colon's been, when we talk about Gio Gonzalez, is he the most consistent starter in all of baseball right now, Paulie?
Oh, yeah, this graphic's incredible. Look at his FIP since joining Washington. 2012, 2.82, 3.41, 3.03. Last year, last year 3.05 and then 3.09 this season. Those are incredible numbers, Teddy.
Well, the consistency is certainly there for the fielding independent pitching stats for Gonzalez. Now, so far, he's 3-1 with a 1.86 ERA this season because his BABIP, batting average on balls in play, career best 257. So we would expect that to rise at some point. But on the positive side, his 2.4 walks per 9 innings also a career best. It's worth noting, and over 8 starts so far this season, only the Cubs and Wrigley scored more than 2 earned runs against him. And in 6 of his last 7, it's 0 or 1 earned runs allowed for Gio Gonzalez.
To the Cubs and the Cardinals. Big one here. Lackey against Wainwright. Lackey $1.15, 7.5 the total. Wainwright going into his last start at a 6.80 ERA. And then against Colorado, 6 2/3 a shutout ball, 5 strikeouts. Maybe he found something here. Interesting quote after the game. And a horrible spot for the Cubbies, too.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about the Wainwright quote because this really stands out. We've talked a fair bit about Adam Wainwright on SportsBit throughout the first couple of months of baseball season. Initially, dead nuts bet against pitcher. Then, well, maybe we need to watch him because he's getting better. And now, coming off his best start of the season, here's his quote. I needed a game like that. I knew in the bullpen before the game that some of the things we had been working on had clicked into place. We continue to build my leg strength to make little adjustments to my delivery. I continue to stay positive. When you stay positive, even when you're struggling, a lot of good things can come of that. There were a lot of lessons I learned going through that process. So nothing but positives for Adam Wainwright right now. And then again, a couple of positives for John Lackey, too,
yeah.
After a couple of seasons with the Cardinals. He signed with the Cubs to win a World Series ring. And boy, so far, Paulie, he's really making a contribution towards that.
Well, he'd be motivated and ready to go going back to St. Louis. So 3-1 with a 3.31. Worked into the 7th inning already 5 times. Dominated win in his return to St. Louis April 18th. 7 innings pitched, 0 runs, 11 strikeouts. I'm worried about that Cubs offense. We've talked about it for a week. And more, Teddy, what I teased earlier about the horrible spot for the Cubbies off the Sunday night game at San Francisco because they had to put it on ESPN.
Well, exactly. They're in the rare setting of traveling back across 2 time zones without a day off. ESPN pushed that Sunday game to a late start. It's not going to impact Lackey, who was already in St. Louis, probably eating at one of his favorite restaurants, but it is likely to impact his teammates. The Cubs, 4-7 their last 11 ball games. This is the worst stretch they've had by far over the course of the season. We can call it a legitimate slump. And they've scored 3 runs or less in 6 of their last 7. Traveling multiple time zones off a late game, not likely to help.
Up next, deep dive. Impact of key players on team performances. That's coming up on SportsBit. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.
Go to SBROdds.com. Browse, compare, and shop live odds available at top online sportsbooks.
All right, we're back. Paulie and Teddy, play of the day coming up. We wanted to deep dive into a couple of Florida teams in Major League Baseball, some key injuries and some bad performances. Let's start with the Marlins and Stanton. Historical here, what he's been doing. Historic bad run. The second guy in a 5-game span to go hitless and strike out 15 times.
And if you're wondering who the other guy was, it's happened one other time in the last 50 years. Wayne Twitchell did it in 1973. And if it's the first time you ever heard of Wayne Twitchell, it's the first time I ever heard of Wayne Twitchell as well. Now, prior to Sunday, over his last 5 games, Stanton had swung the bat 46 times, and he put the ball into play just twice during that span. Those aren't numbers from a $200 million slugger. What's that, a $300 million slugger?
Yeah.
A ridiculously priced slugger? Those aren't the numbers from your cleanup hitter. Those are the numbers you see from a bad-hitting pitcher. Madison Bumgarner's got better numbers than that over the course of the last couple of weeks. Stanton, nothing but awful. Now, he did break his 0 for 19 streak That was a streak where he struck out 16 times in those 19 at-bats with a single in the 5th inning on Sunday. But he still ended the game 1 of 4 with 2 strikeouts.
You know what's interesting is that in the first year of Mattingly and Bonds, you'd think they would help him out, or at least he'd have huge numbers because they were two of the smartest hitters.
Yeah, I mean, certainly Mattingly and Bonds, both two of the smartest hitters of their era. That being said, both Barry Bonds and his daddy Bobby rank among the top 50 all-time in most strikeouts. Donnie Baseball, on the other hand, he only had 444 strikeouts in his 14-year career. The guy never struck out, but it is kind of funny to see two of the, really two smart hitters taking a guy in Stanton who has the potential to be as elite as anybody and making him a whole lot worse. That being said, Marlins are still 4-4 in their last 8 games. They've remained over 500, and you wonder if later in the season, the fact that they were able to hang around while Giancarlo Stanton has gone through the worst cycle that he may ever have, and they're still hanging around, as opposed to going 0-8 and tanking right now.
Sure.
I think this, for all said and done, for as bad as it's been for Miami and for Stanton in particular, you know what? This isn't so bad, considering. That being said, I got a nice quote here from Bonds talking about Giancarlo Stanton. You want me to read that now, Paulie, or you want to do it?
Sure, go ahead.
All right. This is Bonds. He's being very respectful. He's being very cautious. Quote, "You have to be careful with what you say and how you present it. I've got to have the right questions for him, and we have to be on the same page. He expressed some things that he likes to do, and that also helps me. Now when I'm looking at things or watching film or whatever, I can see what he likes to do, and I can help guide him back to what he needs to do and what has worked for him in the past and what can help him in the future. We haven't had time to come out early and stuff like that. We've been on the road traveling. It's been raining everywhere we go. We've had some early hitting sessions set up on the road, but just really couldn't get to it. Well, Miami's home now. Time for Stanton to start hitting, because if he doesn't, that 4-4 could easily go to about 4-16 in a couple of weeks."
Okay, now let's look at the Rays, and we told you with Forsythe being out, now Kiermaier, this is two top-tier players at their position, and how does this, but the Rays are still hitting a ball, which I can't believe.
Well, they're still among, last I checked, they were leading the majors in home runs, and Kiermaier was a big part of that. He had, his 6th dinger of the season, but nobody had more than 8 on the team. It was coming from all over. But the hand injury, that's an enormous blow to Tampa Bay. He's arguably been the best defensive center fielder in the majors this season. Looks like now he's going to miss a couple of months. And, you look at the WAR numbers, among all outfielders in the majors. 2014, number 24. 2015, number 8. So far in 16, he's number 25. It's not the American League. That's all outfielders. And yet, you talk to the casual fan, they never heard of this guy. So if Logan Forsythe got hurt, we talked about 2 weeks ago. Now they've lost 2 top-tier players in their positions across baseball, even if neither individual has a whole lot of sex appeal to the markets. Remember, the Forsythe war against Major League Baseball second baseman, he was number 5 last year. He was number 6 at the time of his injury this year. And, of course, we got, Paulie, we got quotes. You want to talk Kevin Cash, or you want me to do it?
Go ahead, you talk Cash.
Yeah, exactly. It's what I do. I love reading the quotes. It's fun.
I know. You go crazy with the quotes.
Well, you get to interject your own little comments. Yeah. All right, Cash, talking about replacing Kiermaier. We're going to mix and match. We absolutely called Mickey Matuk up to play. We got a stretch of 18 straight games coming up. He's going to play. We're going to keep guys fresh and rotate our outfielders. The Rays' next day off, Paulie, not until June 9th. And by the time that comes around, they're going to feel the impact of these 2 injuries that they have suffered in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, well said there. All right, I'm looking forward to this. The Mets-National Series will be fun, and, of course, it's always great when the Cubs and the Cardinals get together. And that's where we're going with Money Time. Play of the day, Teddy.
Sure, playing game number 903, 904, St. Louis and Chicago. These teams hate each other. And in this instance, I haven't bet a Cubs under yet this year. This is my spot to do it, absolutely. Cardinals and Cubs under 7.5. The Cubs offense isn't hitting. They scored 18 runs in their 6-game road trip. They scored 3 or less in 6 of their last 7. And of course, Jorge Soler getting a chance to play every day, but the big swings that he takes aren't bringing big results. He's hitting 198 after a hitless Sunday, and you can't have that from the number 5 spot in the batting order. I'm looking for a pitcher's duel, Lackey and Wainwright. Let's take Cubs Cards under 7.5. That's the play of the day.
Very good. Fast-paced show. We're back Tuesday on Sports Bit. Betting Insight today with Paulie and Teddy.